What? We're live? Thanks, Paul. Everybody, welcome to Tanzu Tuesdays. I'm your host, Bob Brinley, bringing you another incredible presenter. I was going to say, like man, historian, philosopher, but presenter is another word for this man. Please welcome everyone, Mark Heckler, to the
Hello.
Tanzu
Hi, everyone.
Tuesdays.
Welcome.
Yay! The crowd goes wild.
Paul goes wild. We'll take
That's
that.
right.
That's fine. That's good.
As always, we have Paul and Tiffany with us, our other
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, there they are, the co-hosts and Tanzu Tuesday runners extraordinaire.
I feel like we're in one of those Japanese game shows where they have the videos of the people to watch their reactions up on the side. So, Tiffany, we expect you to be very emotive as
right.
we're getting our Java on.
All right. Well, so we're here, we're excited, and hope everyone is home, healthy, safe. Here in the Bay Area, it is an absolutely glorious day outside, and you can't go out in it. No, that's not true. Just stay within the confines of your home.
Fence.
Your fenced area. So let's get on to Mark Heckler, who you are coming from the Midwest area, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, but I do have to ask you not to use that term "kick off" because I mean that's kind of that's really dark humor, and we probably shouldn't do that.
I apologize, both now and forever.
Very good. I should probably start with that too. I apologize, but
just
now and forever.
Now and forever,
sounds like
yes.
a good thing to start with, yeah.
What bunker are you currently in right now? What's behind you? I see that. I see where you are. Go ahead, please tell me.
Yes, I am in an undisclosed location somewhere in the computer universe of Tron. So welcome.
I see. I only see that one blue orb over your shoulder, and so I thought that was. Now there's many of them. I got it. I thought it was the what's the one in Thor? You know, they get that from the Asgard tree in Captain America. What's that one? What's that? It's one of the power stones, but they call it something.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah,
I'm totally
I'm blanking too. Oh my gosh.
failing my nerd
didn't know there would be a test.
No. Anyway, well, thank you for coming from the Tron world. Appreciate that. Hopefully,
the grid.
Yeah, the grid. Thank
Now,
you.
it does say Star Trek in the bottom corner of
Oh, did I switch that? Oh, I did switch it. Oh my gosh. Well, hold on. Let me. I think I can fix this. Yes. Hold on.
We're wrong on this, all the levels.
To be fair, this is what happens when Mark is not a Star Trek guy. He's not into science fiction at all, so he wouldn't know the difference.
He's never presented in a Klingon Worf uniform.
See, this is what happens when last time we were on a meeting, I switched between several of these backgrounds and I forgot which one I left it on. Hold on, let me see if I can do better here. Well, I wouldn't say do better.
Bye-bye nerd cred. Bye-bye.
Yep, it's all gone.
Here we go.
It's down the toilet, but fortunately I have a bidet.
Okay,
so
I was wondering how the other one was Tron. I was like, how is the, was it the first one?
Oh, well, I mean, if you want to go old school, I mean, we can do this, Picard's place.
Lynn's, yeah.
Or if you want to go to the Bridge of the Enterprise. See, I was doing this the other day, we can, let's see, we can go to the Bat Cave here. Boom. Yeah. I don't know. What are you feeling today?
Which one's most
I feel like you're
distributed systems.
I think you're more of an Alfred than a Batman.
Probably, or more like, I don't know, the guest who just eats all the pastries. I don't know.
Oh, I've got pastries.
Oh, look at you. Oh my gosh.
Bob's Donut Shop.
Bob, you're just showing off now.
Delicious. Well, I have not quite as many as you, but and after we're all done, I'll meet you at the bar. So that's about all I got for you. So, but for now, we'll go back to spring.
Wow.
All right.
I need to add more. All I have is the background that I took.
Yeah, that's all right. But you've got your Twitter handle in there.
Yeah, and I got a mountain.
Well, I'll switch back to
Mr. Heckler. Let's give you the questions before we go into the actual presentation, just because I like to ask some random questions that aren't to do.
I'll give random answers. This will be great.
Perfect, even better. All right. So you are a coffee guy, I understand, but you're currently drinking tea.
Yes, I try not to discriminate on my hot beverages.
Okay.
I love, well, it's kind of funny because as much as I love coffee, I love a good dark roast. That's my favorite beverage. I think well, definitely bar none. But I also like a good green tea, which also has that dark earthy flavor. So this is gunpowder green tea that I'm drinking right now.
Oh,
quite delightful. I've actually turned a few people
Don't blow up.
onto that. So yes, yeah, and I'm actually I am a two-fisted drinker. So I have water in one hand. Oh, that disappears. That's kind of wild.
Screens. Yep, you can't
Yes,
green screen.
Yes, it just. But I have water to soothe my throat and coffee to soothe my soul. Or well, actually, in this case, it's hot tea to soothe my soul. So
all right,
we're good. All good.
And you have a family. I know you have a few daughters. How many daughters do you have?
Gosh, I didn't know there was going to be a quiz. Let's see. Do you want all of them or just the favorite?
Do you need to Google how many you have?
No, I'm pretty confident. I have three
Phone
daughters.
a friend. There we go. Excellent. Phone a friend. And so you're a family man. You love the tea. And I asked actually this one to Josh because you also are a prolific traveler, much like Josh. If you, obviously, we're all home being safe, but if you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would you be?
Let's see. This is being recorded, right?
Yep.
Yes, I'm right here. This is my absolute best place to be. No, seriously, it is kind of a weird adjustment because I spend much of my life kind of flying here, there, and everywhere. And I've always been very clear that I love being places with people and talking and sharing and coding together. I'm not so much a fan of the travel experience getting there to and from, because, waiting for the 15th delay of a flight or, hanging out in a hotel and having to vacate before you, check out before you can get to the airport and wait for 6 hours or more with delays. That's not so fun, but it's a necessary evil, or had been prior to this year. This year has kind of turned all that on its head. And interestingly, I think not that I don't still miss being out there with folks, but I think it's shown us that a lot of the things that we do can actually be shifted to a virtual type of gathering. Not 100%. There are always going to be times that it makes far more sense to be in the same place at the same time with people. But it's kind of nice to discover kind of the, push out and see where the limits are. So yeah, I'm actually enjoying this time at home. It's kind of crazy and kind of cool. And I'm drinking the best of coffee, the best of teas. And, I've got my standing, motorized desk and always on coffee pot. Life's good. So.
Is that what you call the toilet, the coffee pot? Sorry.
Is that what?
It was a bad joke, Heckler. I said, is that?
I'm trying to make you repeat it, Bob. Come on. I can't be the only one with terrible jokes on here today.
Now, back to your tea and coffee. Have you had the Japanese tea hojicha?
Have you and I had that together in Tokyo?
I don't think we have.
But I don't think we have either.
It's a roasted tea. So basically the same tea they make matcha with. They roast that and make like a hojicha. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. And so you get kind of those darker roasty flavors that you would also get in coffee, but in a tea form. And so I've been really enjoying drinking that lately.
Yeah, I like the roasted flavors. I don't. It's weird because it's like a completely different flavor palette. So if I'm in the mood for something kind of nutty roasted, then I'm all in. Otherwise, I just generally like the darker, earthier flavors. So I guess it kind of depends on mood.
Sounds like to me, Paul needs to send that to you, and then when it gets to your doorstep, you hose it down in Lysol, and then you can brew some.
Yeah, would you make sure you send it though this time sealed, Paul, instead of just loose in a box? Because hosing it down, that it just ruins it.
I was just gonna pour it straight to the mailbox.
Okay. You already sworn I seen you yesterday. Now I know.
And please postmark it to the bridge of the USS Enterprise. All right.
Well, I have to switch my background for that then.
Well, let's get on to the coding. So what are you going to talk about today? And then let's go.
I have no idea. I'm kidding. It's been a kind of an interesting thing because I want to do something, any Monty Python fans here now for something completely different? Yes. All right.
I had to move my hand. You couldn't see it.
Right.
Yes. Oh, there we go.
It's out of focus and then it's into focus.
I don't like jokes and fun things, so I'm not a Monty Python.
Oh,
fan.
good.
Get out. Get out. We don't need you. Oh wait, you're hosting.
Yeah, don't get out. Don't get out. Everything will collapse.
I'm joking. I am a fan.
House of cards. I thought I'd do something a little completely different. Because rather than go through just a ton of material in a short amount of time, I felt like. Because I mean we're used.
Oh, sorry. We have a 24-hour time slot, and it's just you. So.
I thought you were cutting me down, not expanding it. That's cool.
Oh, just 24 hours is all we got.
All right, well, buckle up, folks. This is going to be fun. No, but I mean, we're so used to having to try to cram a lot of material into a short amount of time. I've given like deep dives that are, condensed. I've given deep dives that, sprawl to 3 hours. But at this point, I thought it would be kind of nice to just slow down. That's the Bob Ross thing. Anybody a Bob Ross fan as well? Yeah, I mean, how can you not love Bob Ross with the happy little trees? So I thought, it would be kind of cool just to start from the bottom, just to build up from nothing and go at a kind of a pleasant pace, just like we're kind of noodling in code, and see where we go. If I would like feedback, I mean, if folks look at this and go, oh, that wasn't as fun as I thought it would be, let me know. If you think, wow, this is awesome, this is kind of fun, it's a nice change of pace, let me know that as well, because I'm just experimenting, right? I mean, we're at home, we do crazy stuff. So this is my version of crazy, I guess.
So
okay,
all right.
If you're all listening on the Twitch chat, feel free to ask questions or make comments there, and I will attempt to pay attention to it and relay those things onto Mark. And that way he's not trying to pay attention to multiple places.
Right, because I can hardly pay attention to one place. So Paul knows we've gone coffee hopping. So where's the next one? Okay.
With that, I'll give my calmest Bob Ross introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mark Heckler.
Thank you. Okay, so let me see if I can share this screen. Yeah, so this is the one. Share. Can everyone see that? So let's see, go here. Can you see this? I'm getting nothing. Oh, good.
Yes,
okay, thank you.
Yes.
I thought I'd lost everyone. This is going to be a very, yeah. Oops, where did everyone go?
All your face is covering up your QR code.
Oh, that's okay. Let's see if I can. Anyway, okay. So this is a lot more ceremony than really it probably warrants, but this is kind of what I was thinking: building distributed systems with Spring Boot from the ground up. And from the ground up, I mean like we're just gonna kind of noodle on some things and spin them out of whole cloth, right? So. My name is Mark Heckler. For those of you who don't know me, I am a Spring developer and advocate. I love to write code. I love to develop with Spring. I love to commit to Spring. I also love to advocate for Spring, as almost anyone who's ever used it would, right? I mean, duh. If you have any feedback, questions, comments, feedback, again, and if you didn't like, suggestions, whatever, please email me if you must. Or better yet, tweet me if you don't want to share things publicly. My DMs are open on Twitter, so just ping me at mkheck. A little bit about me. I've co-authored a couple of books, contributed content and code to several other books. I have another book in the pipeline, which I will tell you about momentarily. But I am an architect and developer, a Java champion, Java 1 Rockstar, Groundbreaker ambassador. Gotten a few other awards and honors that still mean I must purchase my own coffee, other than when I'm out with Paul, and then Paul always takes good care of me. Thank you, Paul. But that's fine because it prepared me well for now when I'm at home and I'm buying my own coffee anyway. So I consider myself a professional problem solver. That's not my official title, but that's what we all do, right? This is kind of why we gravitate to this field, because we like to find problems and fix them, and that's inexplicably what makes us tick. Again, Spring developer and advocate. I also, about a year and a half ago, felt like there was a huge gap in terms of supplying and sharing resources within the Spanish-speaking community. And I speak Spanish slightly worse than I speak English, so sorry for that. Appreciate everyone's patience. But I created and I curate Spring Noticias en Español. So if you have Spanish language resources, Spring or Spring-related, Gradle, Maven, Java, Kotlin, Spring, whatever, ping me and I'm happy to share those, because as we all share, we all get smarter together. I think that's a good thing. So that was an area I felt like I could help out, and I do what I can, right? So I also, as I mentioned, have a new book coming out. You can't buy it yet. I'm working on it feverishly when I'm not doing webinars and Tanzu Tuesdays on Twitch. But this is not the real cover. This is the real title, though. Spring Boot Up and Running. I found out, and it's not by O'Reilly. It's actually by O'Reilly. Inexplicably, they gave me a contract to write a book. Go figure. But it's a kind of a big deal at O'Reilly to pick an animal for the cover. Apparently, it takes a long, long time. Numerous committee meetings, votes, revotes and all that. Not being a patient person, I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and create my own cover, a parody cover. So I was looking for something. The title is correct, Spring Boot up and running. So I thought, well, let's find something that's running. I kind of consider myself a mostly higher level primate. So I thought a running monkey should work. This is the best I could come up with. My only real concern now is that they don't stick me with this cover, because that would be kind of sad, but we'll see. Due out in August. If you want to know updates on it, follow me on Twitter or follow Spring Boot Book on Twitter, and stay tuned. So with that, let's code. I don't want to waste a lot of time just, going through slides or talking about stuff when we can be coding stuff, right? So let's dive in. So let's see if I can find that again. All right. So I'm going to, nope, there we go. That's what I was after. So you probably recognize this, or you may recognize this, or this, or this. This is the Spring Initializer, the latest iteration. Really nice, nice layout. I prefer dark mode. I think that's less jarring because I keep everything, well, most things, not everything, but most things on my computer dark. So I like to have that setting toggled, and then of course, next time you open it, it comes back dark mode. It's so nice. It's the little things, right? So we're going to start with the Spring Initializer and just spin up some microservices. And we're going to start with a service. We're going to start with an application, and we're going to keep this fairly traditional, fairly middle of the road to start with. We're going to venture out from there and kind of see where we go. So I'm going to create a Java project using Maven. I'm going to use the current version of Spring Boot, which is 2.2.6. And I'm going to change this group to the Hecklers because for whatever reason, it doesn't work if I don't. Kidding. Okay. But why not? My domain. So, and I was thinking, anytime you try to come up with a demo, you want to have something that you can relate to or that you enjoy. They always tell you good life advice is do what you love. I love coffee, so I typically do coffee type of demos and systems. I thought I'd try to mix it up a little bit, and with the current situation going on, it's been a while since I've ordered pizza. I'll be really honest with you. It's just been too long. It's been several days. So I thought, well, why not make this all about pizza? So my first thought was to create a pizza roulette application where we could maybe just have the system order us some pizza. Well, I don't know. We'll see how far we get with things today, but at least it's a good starting point. So this will be our pizza roulette application. We're going to create a jar. We're not going to use war because this is 2020. So even if it is an off year, and we're going to go to Java 14. Now Spring supports Java 8. That's the baseline. Java 11 is the LTS, and Java 14 is the current release of Java. So of course it's current release and LTS, and then our baseline that we'll support. Everything else on a best effort basis. I'm going to go with Java 14 for no particular reason at this point, but who knows what the future will bring here. And then I'm going to add some dependencies, and I'm going to add a raft of dependencies here. We're going to disable half of them and come back, and then we'll switch them out, and we'll kind of play around with this. Because again, this is just to kind of play around. I feel myself already talking fast because I feel like I've got to cram too much in. So let me take a deep breath.
Hey, Mark. Just seeing developer tools. Maybe if you could zoom in a little bit on your screen, it just looks a little. Looks a little far out on the Twitch stream.
So this is just when I pop up the dependencies.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and select the dependencies, and we'll come back and well, here, let me ask this. Can you see the whole initializer?
I mean, you can see the whole thing. It's just small font is all. So it's pretty, if there's a way to.
Is that better? I blew it up.
That's a little bit better. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you for telling me that. And when I get into the code, I'll blow up the font as well. We'll see how that works out for us.
We should probably figure out a different way than saying blow up because.
Okay, we will expand the font. We will.
There it is.
Embiggen. We'll embiggen the font.
Embiggen it. Yes.
Yes, I do have actually, and the reason we'll come back to that, but I do have a setting in my ID for embiggener and embiggenist, so we'll use one of those probably. So.
All right. Perfect. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you very much for and jump in anytime if you're not able to see, because that kind of defeats the purpose, right?
Well, that came from Mother of Dragons, so
Wow. Hey, hi, Tasha.
Yep.
Hi, Tasha. Okay, so I'm going to bring in some dependencies here. Sorry, I need to channel Bob Ross. I'm going to bring in some beautiful dependencies here. And I'm going to include our Spring Web dependency because we're going to build a web API. And let's see, did I, it's not, there we go. And I'm going to include reactive web so that we can switch off, should we desire to a reactive API using reactive streams publishers. I'm going to bring in time leaf. I don't think we're going to have time to do much with that, but hope springs eternal, right? And then I'm going to include Spring Data JPA. I'm also going to include H2 database so we can store things to an in-memory database. And then at some point we'll get really fancy. We'll include Cassandra and then reactive Cassandra, because why not? We can. I'm going to, let's see what else, stream. So we want Spring Cloud Stream. I also am going to bring in Kafka and let's see, Rabbit and actuator. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I want to bring in. Let's see. We've got web, reactive web. Yeah, looks good. Okay, so we'll go with that. If not, we'll always think we should have gotten there. So I'm going to save that down, our project. For those of you who are brand new to Spring Boot and the Spring Initializer, this doesn't actually generate code other than your main application class and main method. But what it does do is it allows you to select your dependencies and it creates your project structure, zips everything up, and you download it and you unzip it and you're off and running. So it gives you a kind of a running start. It isn't a code generator. It's a project creator, a project generator, if you will. And since we're here anyway, I'm going to go ahead and just create a couple more projects here. So I'm going to also do a notifier, because when you order a pizza, you want to be notified, right, as a customer that the pizza is being created, it's being prepared. We won't need all of these because we're probably not going to be creating a web API, but I'll leave those. We definitely aren't going to be doing anything with time leaf, just for a notifier. We won't need JPA or H2. We don't need Cassandra. We will need Spring Cloud Stream and Kafka RabbitMQ, maybe Actuator, why not? So let's generate that project. And there's our notifier project. And then just to go completely crazy, I'm going to create a Kotlin language Spring Boot application using Gradle. And then let's see, we're going to call this our pizza inventory app, pizza inventory. And then I'm going to dial this back to Java 8 because I'm going to be doing something a little differently. This isn't for Kotlin's sake. What I am going to be doing, though, is adding in Mongo, so reactive Mongo, embedded Mongo, Spring Data Mongo, because the world needs more Mongo, right? So I think that's all I really want and need. Let's go ahead and save that. Again, if not, we'll always think so. All right, so let's open up our application. And we'll open this in our favorite IDE, NetBeans. Kidding. Those of you who follow me on Twitter probably saw yesterday that after I had updated IntelliJ, I had some interesting things happen. And IntelliJ is normally absolutely just problem-free. Anytime you do an update, you can roll right into a demo in the next 10 minutes and everything is fine. So I didn't think anything about it until some things stopped working. And I went through a lot of different gyrations to try to come up with a way to resolve the things that I was trying to work on, which we'll get into momentarily. But I wound up using NetBeans for some things. So I pick on my friends. That's not a slam against NetBeans. I typically lean toward IntelliJ because it is just an amazing IDE. And I love it. It fits my workflow better. And I think, obviously with the Kotlin support, JetBrains shepherd Kotlin as well as develop IntelliJ. So it fits best for me, but use what makes you happy, what works. Okay, so let's see. I did say I was going to update this or open this up. Let's see. So the first thing I'm going to do is open my Palm. Can you read that, Bob, Tiffany, Paul? Should I update that? Should I increase that? Let's go.
Increase the piece, please.
Yeah. So here Here we go. I've already got on a high contrast because I think that pops presenting, but here's my bigger. Let's try that.
Yeah, if I look at it on full screen, it's okay, but it would still be nicer for it to be. Yes, that's
that looks good.
Yeah, that's
okay. So is that sufficient, or do I need to take it to embiggenist?
I have it on my laptop screen, and it looks good enough.
Yeah,
we'll go with that. Okay,
got some happy little code lines there.
Happy little palm. Okay, so I'm just going to comment a few things out because at this point we have kind of gone into dependency overload. I'm going to comment out the Cassandra and Cassandra reactive dependencies. I am going to stick with JPA to start off with, and I'm leaving Timeleaf in there again. Hope springs eternal that we'll have a chance. If not, well, there's always the repos. I'm going to comment out WebFlux because we're going to build a web API and imperative API for starters. We may circle back. In fact, we almost certainly will circle back to that. Spring Cloud Stream, Kafka, Rabbit, all that's good. There's our H2 database. So we have everything here that I think we probably want, all the best of stuff. So we're going to just save that. And I'm going to open up our application. I'm also going to open up my application.properties, which I'll forget to come back to probably, and we'll have to, like restart a couple times. But again, hope springs eternal. So, I did forget one thing. Oh, well, we can fix this. Because one of the things that was a bit of a challenge yesterday with the update to IntelliJ was that Lombok stopped working. And I think that's really a good excuse to get out of the habit of using Lombok, because Lombok does have a few little idiosyncrasies. It also means that you have to have a working plugin with your IDE to use it. So we could write this thing all out. I could actually generate the full domain class if I must from the IDE, but I'm just going to be lazy here. Lazy good, not lazy bad. I just want to clarify that. And we'll include Lombok as well. Interestingly, we'll go ahead and recycle our Maven dependencies here. And then we'll create our class. This is our domain. We'll call this cleverly enough pizza. So we'll create an ID that is of type long, and we'll create a description of type string. So pizza ID and description. Again, using Lombok, I'm going to ask Lombok to create this as a data class, which gives me my getters, setters, equals, hash code, toString, a couple other things as well. And then I'm going to have Lombok providing no args constructor for me and an all args constructor for me. All args constructor just means for each member variable, it should create a constructor with a parameter for each member variable, I guess is the best way to put that. So we have what we need there. Now, again, I'm using JPA to start off with, just as a nice, springboard. Wow, tough crowd. Okay, springboard. Okay, we'll keep going. So with JPA, we need to designate something as an entity, spelling counts, and then I'm going to indicate this is my ID field. And that's sufficient, right? And next we need to create an interface. We'll call this our pizza repo, and we're going to create a repository. We're going to extend our CRUD repository, which is an interface defined in Spring Data. We're going to be storing objects of type pizza with IDs of type long. And if we look at the CRUD repository, we see, again, this is an interface. Spring Boot's autoconfig is smart enough to see that when you extend an interface defined in Spring Data, it will create a repository bean for you to act as a proxy to the data store on your behalf. So that is kind of nice. It gives you a lot of functionality with a single line of code. And you can define your own methods if you wish, but in most cases, let me just go back and take a look at this again. So you can see it gives you some basic methods just right out of the box: a save all, a find by ID to check to see if one exists. In this case, a pizza exists by searching for its ID. A find all by ID. So if you have numerous pizzas in this case that match up, that meet the criteria, it'll return an iterable. You can get a count of all pizzas. You can delete by ID or delete all, so on and so forth. So it gives you some nice capabilities just cleanly out of the box. Now, let's go ahead and just create an API. So REST API, REST controller, and I'm going to start off with a request mapping for a base URL of pizzas. And we'll create a class, which will be our pizza API, right? Let's see. So we need to first inject our pizza repo so we can use that. So pizza repo, we'll call this repo. Now, with Spring, we can inject using field injection, but that's kind of evil. Ollie Dropbomb wrote a really great article, cleverly enough titled Why Field Injection is Evil. If you haven't read that, I would point you to that because he states the case pretty eloquently, far better than I could. But you can also use constructor injection. So we could create a constructor and just inject it like that, and it solves that problem. However, lazy developer here, we're using Lombok anyway, so we might as well just have Lombok provide that for us, right? So it'll create a constructor with all member variables, a parameter for each member variable. In this case, if there is one, so it does that. And we're off and running. So next we just do a get mapping because we want to be able to get from a particular endpoint. In this case, we default to pizzas if we don't specify anything further to be more specific. And we're going to return an iterable of pizza. And we'll say this is get all pizzas method. And simply enough, we'll just use our repo to do a find all. And that's it. So let's start with that. Make sure we can poke it and make sure it actually responds. And there we go. So everything seems to be working fine. We can fix it, don't worry. Let's see, so let's go here. And there we go. So localhost 8080. Oh, well, I pointed this to the pizzas endpoint, didn't I, for our API. Now, as you probably can see there's not much to be reported at this point. We don't have any pizzas that we're storing. And of course, since we're storing this in memory at this point with H2, each time we restart, it'll just wipe out anything we have there. So it would be really nice if we actually had some example pizzas kind of pre-populated here. So many ways to do this. You can create a command line runner or an application runner or an application event listener. I like to do it this way because I feel like it's a nice way of going about it. It's kind of clean. But again, this is a matter of, I guess, more taste in many ways. So this will be my data loader class. And then I'm going to inject, once again, my pizza repo. And this is all our constructor. And then we want to create a post construct method, which is just a straight Java, right? So this will execute when this Spring Bean is created. This component is created. And we'll just load some data, right? So the first thing we do, just as good database citizens, is delete everything just to make sure we've got a clean slate, right? The next thing we do, I'm just going to do a save, and save takes a pizza. So new pizza, and we'll say this is our ID is 1, and let's see, my favorite pizza with pineapple. Please stick around. I know this can get controversial, but this is the right answer, right? Everyone?
Maybe.
No. Okay. We probably should do a vote on this.
I'm all in for pineapple on pizza.
Yes,
it's good. It's just not my favorite.
So you've got to get that sweet and savory, right? So all right.
There's a got to.
I think there's a got to. Yeah.
I mean, if you are going to have pineapple, you should also definitely have anchovies.
Okay, moving on. So the next thing we want to do is do a find all, so we can kind of see what's out there, right? So we'll do a for each, and we'll just do a system.out print line. Okay, so that will show us what's going in to our data store, right? So let's do that. We'll restart. Time for a spot of tea here.
I think the question is, would Bob Ross put pineapple pizza if we're trying to stay on brand?
I feel like he would, because it's a happy little pineapple. I don't know.
There it is. You just put happy in front of anything and you win the Bob Ross comment. Got it.
All right. So we have now that we can confirm, and let's see if I can see it here. Yes, there we go. So let me zoom in here. So we see that it's actually storing it. We've got that printed out. That's one confirmation. But when we're querying our pizza repo, we see that it comes back just fine. So that's good. Things are working. Let's go ahead now that we have kind of that baseline, that very simple baseline established, let's build out from there. So I'm going to do another get mapping. Make sure my fingers are on the right keys here. And I'm going to be able to, I want to be able to return a particular pizza by its ID, right? So this is actually an optional because if you specify any old ID and it doesn't happen to be a pizza in there, we want to make sure that we don't just freak out here. We want to return an optional that it doesn't exist. That's fine. So get pizza by ID. And of course, we're using a path variable for that. Actually, that's a long ID. And we'll use our repo once again to find by ID. And that's not bad. And next, we want to be able to post to here. So we'll just use pizzas here. As you can see, we'll just post from there, and we'll post in a pizza to be stored. We'll return a pizza. We know we'll have one because we're sending one to store, right? So save pizza. And we're using a request body, and we're passing a pizza. We'll call it cleverly enough pizza. And then we'll return repo.save pizza. And actually, just for grins, we probably should do a system.out.println line. And let's see. And I'm going to just do this so it's a little easier to discover. Saving your pizza. Plus, fingers are off the keys. Pizza, there we go. Okay, so this looks like it should work. Let's find out.
Hey Mark, while we're waiting for it to see if it works, you're doing system out print line. That's kind of what you do just because you're doing a quick demo. What library would you usually reach for to do that sort of logging for a real situation?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their favorite logging library. SLF4j, though, kind of covers, it's kind of the front end for all. I'm just doing this because I want to just print it to my system out.
Sure.
So we can see it in action. I should actually say, and thanks for bringing this up, I should actually say that in most cases, what I do is I try to follow either best practices or expedient for demos practices. In this case, this is kind of one of those expedient for demo practices. So, oops.
Cool. No, that's all good. I was actually just curious what you like as far as logging goes.
I like them all. Yeah. So, okay. We have pizzas, or we have a pizza, I should say. So now what I want to do, let me blow that up or expand that. And for whatever reason, this isn't, so let's see. So how do you appearance? There we go. Yeah, for whatever reason, sometimes my Zoom doesn't work until I do it manually a time or two. I don't understand what's going on here. So view, appearance. Let's try this one more time. Zoom in, and now see if it, wait, it's just not cooperating at all. Okay, so this is VS Codium. This is the fully open source version of VS Code, Visual Studio Code. Codium actually strips out the telemetry stuff, the telemetry code that is embedded in VS Code. So if you take nothing away from this talk other than this, VS Codium is kind of my go-to editor when I'm not using an IDE, so that's kind of nice. And I have a pizza.json entry here that I'm going to be using to go ahead and post here. So HTTP. This is HTTPy, by the way. I don't typically use curl because HTTPy used to refer to itself as curl for humans. I kind of like that, even though I think that they've kind of stopped using that line. But it uses sensible defaults. So if it assumes localhost, unless you provide the name of the machine, and we're going to just do a :8080, which means localhost 8080. We're going to post 2 pizzas and for the endpoint, and then of course we have our pizza.json we're going to send there. And look at that. So now let's see, we have 2 pizzas. And if we go back here, we can see that it is indeed saving our pizza. So that's a good start, right? So we have, it's a fairly simple API that we've built on the front end, a back end as a front end. So we've got our pizza API that we're using or could use in theory to build out from and create our little pizza ordering app. So that's a start. But at this point, we're using JPA and H2, and maybe we want to take this up a notch and maybe go away from from H2 and in-memory databases and go to a real database, one that, and I know with H2 you can actually save to the file system, but let's take this up to something a bit more robust, shall we? So I'm going to uncomment Cassandra, Spring Boot Starter Data Cassandra, that's easy for me to say, right? And then I'm going to comment out my JPA, Spring Data JPA, and H2, and we're going to convert this over to Cassandra. And this is where that kind of that rapid development comes in pretty handy. You know, you have, I like to say Spring Boot gives you developer superpowers because it gets a lot of things out of your way so you can get up and going quickly, very productively. So we can see now that entity isn't recognized, so we can get rid of that. Actually, we're going to replace that because now we're going to use Cassandra tables. So this is our domain class. We're going to store this in a table. This is no longer an ID. It is a primary key. And let's see, we've got, do a little bit of import cleanup here. Look at that. And let's see what happens. Oh, well, I know one thing that'll happen. As I warned you earlier, I like to skip over the default, the startup properties here. So it should bark at us. There we go. Good. Had me worried when things don't work and you expect them to, that's worrisome. When things do work and you don't expect them to, that's even worse. So let's go to our application properties, and we need to provide a couple of well, actually, it should tell us here. So it should give you a hint, which is one of the nice things about Cassandra and Spring Data. No key space has been specified. Use a key space or explicitly specify keyspace.table_name. So we should probably do that, right? So we're going to indicate a key space name. I'm going to call this mkheck. And then I'm also going to specify a schema action, which is not required. I just find it helpful. So what I like to do is do a create if not exists, which gives you the option that if a table doesn't exist, it goes ahead and, or a schema in this case doesn't exist, it goes ahead and creates a schema. You can do a default create, so it'll create every time. Recreate none, so it assumes that there are tables in place. I like to do this, especially when I'm rapidly trying to spin something up as a prototype or as a test case scenario, just to kind of test the waters with things. So if a schema doesn't exist, go ahead and create that. And that's probably enough to get us up and running at this point. So we're off to the races. We should be back ending to Cassandra now. Let's go ahead and restart. Yes, it has our pizza in there that we kind of primed the pump with. So let's go back here. We'll add our second pizza. We'll refresh. That all works. We go back here. And of course, we see that we were indeed saving our pizza, our garden veggie pizza. So that's all right? We switched out data stores with just a couple of minutes and a couple of property settings, and that was pretty handy. Again, kind of those developer superpowers here. So what if we want to take this from an imperative model to a reactive model? And I'm not going to get a lot into the reactive sphere today because Josh handled that brilliantly last week. But I do think it's important to kind of consider that if you're looking at reactive APIs, what are some of the benefits that you might gain from those? And with a reactive application, with reactive systems of reactive applications, what you can gain particularly is scalability. And again, just going to hit on this rather briefly so we don't get into a long discussion. Happy to continue the discussion at another time, certainly with more depth and breadth. But you can also get into certain potential performance gains. So if there is a way to parallelize some of that work, if you're making numerous requests rather than doing them sequentially, requests to other services, for instance, you can parallelize some of those in many cases and speed things up. If you had 5 different requests going to 5 different services that have to happen sequentially, and each one takes 1 second, your minimum response time from this particular application, from this service, would be a minimum of 5 seconds. But if you can fire off the requests for those together and collect the responses when they come back in together, and each one takes a second, what is your minimum time then? 1 second. So you have certain opportunities to improve performance, even though that's not the primary focus. The primary focus is indeed to scale with more connections and handle more load and certainly do more with fewer resources, but some potential is there as well. So I'm going to just switch this over from our Cassandra, interacting with Cassandra in a standard way, blocking way, to use our reactive drivers here. And I'm also going to close out our starter web dependency and replace it with our starter web Flux, so we get all the reactive publisher capabilities here. And we'll be using Netty as the default engine instead of Tomcat. Again, you can change that out with any Servlet 3.1 compatible engine, but Netty is an awesome, awesome option. Great choice, great default. So we'll go with that. And let's see what happy little trees we might have now. Now we can leave this. This will work, but you're not getting any real benefits from staying with your standard blocking CRUD repository. So we're going to replace that with a reactive CRUD repository, which again is also defined in Spring Data. And you can see a little bit of difference in the return types, the API here, because instead of returning in our case, pizza, an object of type T, you're returning a mono of type T. And for WebFlux, which is based on Project Reactor, which is a project that we lead, we shepherd, but certainly many inputs, many committers around the world, there are two types of publishers. One is a Flux, and one is a mono. And a mono roughly corresponds with an object of type T. You're returning 0 or 1 objects of type T in a mono. That's a reactive publisher. Provides that value when it's available, if it's available. You also have a Flux, which is a reactive publisher, which is a small or large iterable, a collection, if you will, a reactive stream of values. And that may be a small collection, a handful, 3, 5, 8, 20, or it may be a sporadic publisher, a sporadic Flux, which can produce a value every so often, once every second, once every week, once every month. Maybe it varies. So you can have a 0 to N situation, a 0 to N publisher, which is called a Flux. So it's a bit different API, but largely corresponds to your singletons, your objects of type T, and your iterables, but in a reactive manner. So they're provided when they're available. So here we're returning. In this case, we were returning a pizza. Let's just go ahead and change this to return a mono of pizza. Same thing here. And then we'll change this to returning, instead of an iterable, we'll return a Flux of pizzas. And what else do we need to change here? Well, this API changed just a bit. And in reactive programming, you can't assume that this statement will complete before this statement begins, right? It just falls through, or potentially could fall through, right? So instead of doing a delete all and expecting that to be a hard stop, and then once everything is deleted from the repository, then we save a new pizza here. And then once that's done, then we do a find all and we see what's out there. We do need to chain these. We need to wait for this to kind of give the all clear before we go ahead and save our next pizza. Because if these happen kind of simultaneously, we don't know what we'll wind up with. And that's not predictable, right? So we want to do something here after our delete all that waits for the signal, the kind of the all clear signal. And there are a couple things we can do here. So we have a then, which takes a mono, a publisher of 0 or 1 values, and then it produces a mono of 0 or 1 values. We also have a then many, which takes a publisher of any kind, a mono or a Flux, and produces a Flux. So the thing that is important to look at is what we get back from our repo save, right? So we go and look at that. That produces a mono, which tells us that we want something coming out of here that also accepts a mono, which is a then. And if we just bring this up, right, then we have our mono. So I'm going to clean this up just a bit. And then at this point, what comes out of here, I was kind of hoping that would show us here, but it will eventually. So we know we're going to be getting a mono. We're accepting a mono. We're going to be producing a mono. And then we should do another then, perhaps. So we actually, you know what? Let's do a then many, because we want to accept a publisher of some kind. And we just happen to have a publisher here. So there we go. So we're producing a mono of type pizza. We're at this point in our then many, we're accepting a Flux of pizza. We're producing that, and then we should subscribe. Now, instead of a for each, a Flux has a subscribe, and with reactive publishers, typically you should consider everything to be a cold publisher, meaning that without someone subscribing, no work really happens. So if no one's watching, no work happens. And why is that important? Why is that a good thing for publishers? Because they can consume a lot of cycles, right? They can do a lot of work. And if nobody's listening, nobody cares, you're just consuming a lot of resources for nothing. There are hot publishers, but typically you should kind of consider most publishers as being cold, meaning you have to subscribe to them to kick off the action. So we're going to subscribe to that. And within that, we're just going to borrow our system.out.println and drop that there. And there we go. So now let's see what we have. So we should be able to, in this case, delete all pizzas. Then we'll save a pizza. Then we'll query the entire pizza repo, and then we'll print out everything that we find. So let's go ahead and run that now. Oh, is it already 10 till 4? We're going to have to, I guess, speed this along a little more than I thought. I'm just painting happy trees here. Oh my gosh.
Well, we had a nice little chat at the top,
pizzas?
so yeah.
We don't have a hard finish, so feel free to keep going a little bit longer than the stop that we said.
I'll try not to abuse that, but yes, we may run just a couple over. So
that means you can run over the current time, not the 24 hours.
I see. Well, that's disappointing.
Yes.
Okay.
You must keep the 24-hour time limit.
Things were going so well there for a minute. Okay. All right. So we have our one pizza that we placed out there. Again, we're just reinitializing everything, keeping it clean. That's all working. So let's go ahead and we will add a pizza. Looks fine. Let's see if that worked. Yes, it worked. We'll go back here. Yes, we're saving our pizza. That looks great. Okay. Now, we've created, I guess just a quick recap, we've created a very simple REST API. We've got the ability to query and post, get and post. We have the ability to save things. We started with an in-memory database using JP and H2. We've switched over to Cassandra, so we have a real scalable data store. Then we went to a reactive model, so now we're storing things reactively, no blocking. That's great. But we're still an island, right? So we need to maybe expand this a little bit. So with our pizza ordering application that we're going to be fielding at our local pizza shop, we want to be able to send a few different little pokes to different services to do different things. So let's go back and, well, I guess let's start with this. We want to be able to send, anytime we get an order, we want to be able to notify others that we have received an order. So I'm going to, in this case, I'm going to do this kind of a few little corners here. I'm going to just do things rather traditionally, and I'm going to enable binding to our source. And this is a Spring Cloud Stream messaging abstraction here. We have a source that we're going to bind to and inject here, source. And once again, all our constructor in Lombok picks that up also as a parameter for a constructor. So that's nice. So we're injecting that. Actually, I put that in the wrong place because I want to be able to do that somewhere else. So let me just move this down. So I get to monologuing sometimes and I forget where I am. So that's it. As Bob Ross would say, there are no accidents, or just happy accidents. You can place that happy tree elsewhere. You can expand that tree. So now here in our post mapping, that's where we're going to want to send the message on that, yes, we do indeed have an order. So I'm going to take our source and do an output. We're going to use our output channel, and we're going to send a message. I'm going to use our good friend Message Builder to create a payload here. Our payload is the pizza, right? And we're going to build that message and send it. Simple. Except we do need to say where we're sending that to where we're sending that, I guess. So let's go to our application properties, and we need to indicate to Spring Cloud Stream what our bindings are. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that this is more of the traditional API for Spring Cloud Stream. And I'm going to be showing you here momentarily, or in a few minutes, what the more functional API is. That's kind of the future direction for Spring Cloud Stream. Say that 3 times fast. But I think it's useful in this case to show you kind of the traditional approach to it as well. And it also lets me show off a couple of other things as we go. So it's a happy tree. So I'm going to point to the destination. We'll just call this sync. And then I wouldn't have to specify a binder if I only had a single binder in my class path. But as you might remember, we have Kafka and we have Rabbit. And Spring Boot's autoconfig can only do so much. It can't read minds. So it sees 2 binders and it says, well, which do you want me to use? If I don't specify a binder here, I either need to comment one of those binders out, or I need to specify here to go ahead and tell it, yes, go ahead and bind to Rabbit. So it will leverage Rabbit for its exchanges and queues. And if we switch this out later to Kafka, it will use a Kafka topic. So we're going to start with Rabbit. So that should be sufficient, I think, to go ahead and connect things to where we can send our pizza that we're ordering as the orders come in on to any listeners who may be listening to the exchanges and queues downstream. But of course, we don't have any, right? That's a bit problematic. We have the capability now to send on the order, but we don't have anyone listening on the other end. So let's go here, and we're start with our.
Mark. We're listening.
Yeah, I was looking over. I see Tiffany's photo, but all I see is Paul's and Bob Brindley. So
what?
Sorry,
I was dreaming of pizza.
Speaking of pizza and all this stuff, what exactly is mono and what is Flux?
Oh yes, well, did you step away to go to the restroom or get some hot tea? Come on, Tiffany. Okay. No, when the Reactive Streams initiative was created, actually, thank you for asking, because this is something that is easy to kind of skip over. And if you've worked with it for a while, you kind of forget these are very fundamental concepts, right? So with the Reactive Streams initiative, there was a publisher. It was very simple API, right? So it was four interfaces defined. And one of those was a publisher. And the publisher is just the thing that produces things, right? So it will produce 0 to n values. And that makes sense, right? So you have a publisher, a subscriber, a processor, which incorporates both. And then let's see, what's the other one? I'm just completely drawing a blank. 3 out of 4, there's only 75%. So subscriber, publisher, processor. We'll come back to that. So your subscriber, or your publisher, excuse me.
Consumer?
Pardon?
Was the other one consumer?
No. That's your subscriber. A processor incorporates both subscriber and publisher. Oh, subscription. Yeah, okay. Oh boy, it's been a long month this week. And it's only, what, Tuesday? Wow. So only about 28 more days to go. Cool.
Tanzu Tuesdays.
But with a publisher, I mean, it with each different implementer of the Reactive Streams API can choose how they want to implement it. And within Project Reactor, we felt it kind of made sense. And I was outvoted on almost every time, thank goodness, because it's actually a working, usable library now. But it made sense. It seemed that it made sense to kind of parallel the world that we live in the imperative on the imperative side of things. So if you have a method that returns an object of type T, that's one, right? That you're waiting for it. It hasn't returned anything yet. There it is. It returned 1. So you kind of that 0 or 1, and that's a mono in the Reactive Streams parlance. So we specialized the publishers, the Reactive Publisher interface, to be a reactive mono, which is a type of publisher, or a Flux, which is also a type of publisher, but the Flux corresponds with your kind of iterables of type T, so a collection, if you will. So you have 0 to n. And with that, you could have a small collection, a small handful, or you could have any number of items that kind of dribble out over a long period of time, an indeterminate amount of time. So you could have a flux that could be just go on forever and maybe just spits out a value when a value hits it, when a value is generated, when some kind of event is triggered. So you may get 3 within 3 seconds. You may wait another 5 minutes for the 4th value. You may wait a day for the 5th. That's a sporadic publisher, but I mean, there's no specific specialization for that, of course. But you have monos and fluxes, which monos 0 or 1, flux is 0 to potentially infinity. So going back here, let's see. Boom. So you have a mono of pizza, which means you're expecting 0 or 1 pizzas. In this case, we're searching for a particular pizza by its ID. So we'll either get 1 back if we have a match, or we won't get any back if we don't have a match. Same thing with save pizza. We know we're going to get 1 back because we're saving it. But in this case, 0 or 1 is the the most specialized return value we can provide. That's generally good. And getting all pizzas, we'll return a flux. And a flux, you can have one element. I mean, that's still a flux, but you can also have 3, 5, 50, 500, 5,000 elements coming back. So that's why we specialize there. Cool. Cool. Okay. All right. So
I think we still have many more questions, but we don't want to hold the stream up.
Okay, that's cool. Well, again, and if anybody has questions that they want to ask later, again, my DMs are open on Twitter, MKHeck, or submit them through here or however else we normally do this. I happy to answer anything I can, and if this is beyond me, because that's not a surprise. I just love to hack around, but it's not like I know everything, right? I'll happily find people who are far more knowledgeable than I am to help answer those. So. All right, so we're going to, we have our notifier. I'm going to comment out web. We're going to use web flux here. Let's see, so we're keeping actuator. Oh, we didn't do actuator. Hopefully we can circle back on that as well. So we have Rabbit, Kafka, that's fine. And I guess that's pretty much it. So we have everything we need. I'm just going to comment out web, so that's good. And we'll go to our application. Go to our application properties. Now, in this case, I actually want to do something a little different. So I've got Java 14, not sure why it defaults to that. That's just terrible. We're going to go to 14, JDK 14 or Java 14 for records because I want to play with that. And by the way, this is something that you find in IntelliJ, the latest update. Not really sure why. If you close out of this, we've selected 14 for preview, right? The project language level. You also, just a little gotcha, need to go in here and choose the language level here as well. So there we go. And then once you do that, we know that we have our pizza, right? We're using Lombok in this case, but let's use records. So we have a record pizza. Oh, come on, you can do this. IntelliJ, don't let me down. All right, well, we'll continue as if everything's happy. So we have an ID of type long. We have a description of type string. Ugh. Come on, IntelliJ. Oh, look, it switched it back. Look, there we go. Okay, 2 tries. You all saw me. I'll be updating my issue soon. Thank you for coming. All right, so we have a record, a Java 14 record. This is a shallow immutable pizza record or pizza class here. So we have a record which will provide our getter setters, if you will, our properties, accessible properties for a pizza. Now I'm wanting to create our notifier here. And this is just the thing that notifies when we order a pizza, it'll notify our consumer, our customer that, yes, we've indeed received your pizza order. Thanks for ordering with us. Have a great day. So I'm going to create a configuration class. And again, there are numerous ways you can do this. This is just my preference because I feel like it's nice, neat, and clean to do this. But you can create any bean definitions up here as well in the Spring Boot application, because if you go there, you can see that we've got our Spring Boot configuration, and you can chase that down and you see that it's a configuration class as well. Don't really have to break this out, but again, I like to keep my concerns separate. So this will be our pizza notifier class, and I'm going to create a bean here. And this bean will be a consumer. We'll start off with a consumer of pizzas, which sounds divine, right, Bob? Bob's like, Bob's eating pizza.
Yes, it's so divine. It's like the divinals.
Divine.
Sorry, 290s of a reference.
All right, Tiffany, I'm only going to talk to you from here on out. Okay, so I have, you can tell I've got my people screen over here on my other screen, so I keep looking over just to see the smiling faces. So, all right. With that said, so we're going to just consume pizza. This is my favorite part of the day, right? So we need to, a consumer is what? It's a functional interface with a single abstract method. As such, we can provide a Lambda to provide that implementation. So this will we'll grab our pizza and we'll just do a system.out.println pizza. and we'll dress this up a bit. Otherwise, we could just do a method reference. So I like to just make things a little more visible, especially when I'm just noodling around. So your order was accepted for pizza.
Are you going to put noodles on a pizza?
No,
I mean, you're putting pineapples. Why stop there, right?
And we'll just grab the description here. So I'm going to just ignore those terrible comments. Actually, I guess I need to ask: is it a thing to put noodles on a pizza? I mean, that's a lot of carbs.
Have you never had
no
mac and
idea.
cheese pizza?
Yeah, mac and cheese
Oh,
pizza.
I've had that.
Yeah,
it's actually good.
Yeah,
I think I had it once, and I think that was enough. I don't know. Anyway, we need
of course, for full effect, you need to then deep fry it.
Oh my gosh.
Now I'm thinking of deep fried Oreos.
So do you batter dip it before you deep fry it? I mean, this is still a pizza, right?
Of course.
Silly question, I guess. Ugh. All right. Well, okay. Now we don't have to. I mean, I could set this to 0 and it'll grab a random port. That's probably fine for this. We won't be messing with this one anymore anyway. So once we establish that it works, I'm going to bind for Spring Cloud Stream. Now, in this case, I'm using a consumer bean. I used the traditional API before here. So I used a source. I'm binding to a source class. In the traditional API for Spring Cloud Stream, you have a source, just completely went blank here. So a source, a processor, and a sink. Boy, you can tell it's been a while since I've used this API. I feel terrible now. But the traditional API will be supported for some time to come. And this concept of a source, a processor, and a sink makes a lot of sense in that you have a source, the producer of values. You have a sink, which is the end consumer of values. That's kind of the end of the line. And then you have a processor in between, which will transform those values. The new functional API actually mirrors that, but it eliminates some of the leaky abstraction, right? So you have a supplier, which is an actual Java interface. You have a consumer, which again parallels roughly with a sink. So it's consuming things, the end of the line. And then you have a function, which is also a functional interface. All these are defined in Java. So it's a very, very tight abstraction. You don't have too much of you don't have any of the Spring integration kind of leakage into your API, which is kind of nice. But what we need to do at this point, we have a consumer. And Spring Cloud Stream will aptly see that as a sink or a consumer. So it's kind of the end of the line in this particular case for any messages it receives. And we're going to bind to that when we have our notify consumer method, our binding here. We need to define if this is an input channel or an output channel. Now, since this is a consumer, we know that it will only have an input channel, right? Because it's a consumer, it consumes, it does nothing else. If it's a function, it would have an input and an output channel by default, or channels, I should say. And then if it were a supplier, it has an output channel or channels by default. That's it. In this case, it's a consumer, so we have 0 to potentially 8 just out of the box channels that we can use. And we're going to set our destination again to sync, because if we go back here to our original app, we're sending things to a destination of sync. We should be listening on that as well. And then I'm also going to specify that this is our Rabbit enqueue. We're going to be listening on a Rabbit exchange enqueue. So with that, I'm going to start this and take a drink of tea because I'm getting dry. I hear myself. And that looks, I think, pretty good. Seems to be starting up fine. So now if I go back to, let's see, do we have this? Okay, we've restarted at some point. So that's fine. That lets me do this without any changes. So that's a good thing. So our Pizza Roulette app now reflects 2 pizzas. If we go here, we see that our notifier has indeed received the notification that that a pizza was ordered, and then it's pushed out a notification that your order was accepted for pizza, garden veggie. So our notifier service works, and the 2 are connected via RabbitMQ, so via messaging platform. By the way, sometimes folks say, well, what happens if my messaging platform goes offline? So if you're using RabbitMQ or Kafka or Kinesis or Google Cloud PubSub or Event Hubs or whatever, typically those are part of your critical infrastructure. it's maintained at all costs. So if that goes offline, typically you have bigger problems than your application came offline. I like to think of it like you can have an entire availability zone go offline. You can have Amazon Web Services completely crash, and if so, your application is going to die. But if it dies, that's not your biggest problem, right? So your messaging platform is typically handled by your critical infrastructure team internally or at your cloud provider. So it's a very robust, resilient, reliable bit of infrastructure that you can count on. So we have our initial application, our backend as a front end. We also now have our pizza notifier service. So now let's go back and just add to the mix just a bit more. So let's see, we have our inventory app. And the reason I think this is kind of useful to add in, there's in canon and out of canon explanation. So we'll start with the in canon explanation for any Trek fans out there. So the in canon explanation is if you are a pizza shop in your local town, whenever you get an order, you consume supplies. Whenever you get an order, you need to let corporate know that you have received that order so that you can get credit for that, so they can see your sales, track your sales, and realize that you're a valid operation, a valid location, so they don't just close you down. That's not necessarily a good thing. So we want to be able to update corporate with each order that we receive, so that yes, they can track our orders, they can see what we need, they can ship it to us, what have you. So we're going to build this in Kotlin because Spring Boot loves Kotlin. Kotlin is on an equal footing with Java. It's a full first-class citizen. You can develop Spring Boot applications with Java and Kotlin, with Java alone, with Kotlin alone. I like Kotlin. It's a great language. So I'm just going to create our inventory application here with that. And let's see, so I'll close that out and we'll go first to our, well, it's not our POM, it's our build.gradle.kts file. So with Gradle, you can either write your scripts in Groovy, which we do when we create Groovy applications, or in Kotlin, because the Kotlin DSL is there as well, the Kotlin script. So we've got, if we're creating a Kotlin application with Spring Boot, we create a Kotlin-based build.gradle file, which is kind of a nice little feature as well. And I have a few things in here. And remember, I wanted to use Mongo. So we're going to do a little bit of work with Mongo because the world needs more Mongo. So I'm going to comment out my Spring Boot starter Mongo. We're going to use reactive Mongo. Let's see. So we have, we can comment out web because we have web Flux. We'll keep all the rest of this. And then we come down here. And this is one of my favorite things in the whole wide world. This is embedded Mongo. And certainly we could point to an underlying instance of MongoDB, just like we are with Cassandra, just like we are with RabbitMQ. But we have an embedded Mongo capability, which is kind of nice. This was created by a German friend of mine who actually, of course, it's set to default for test implementation, so you use it in testing. I'm going to promote it, and we're going to use it here today just for fun, just for the real deal. But it's one of my favorite things about it is just the name, right? It's Flapdoodle. And I have no idea why he named it Flapdoodle, other than the fact that Germans are well known for their crystal clear and brilliant sense of humor. So, yeah, I mean, oops, it just makes me happy. So
I'm trying to imagine what kind of dog that would be.
Well, we have Labradoodles, right? So, I mean, it's got to be something like that. I should have asked him last time I spoke with him, and I didn't even think of it, but next time. Okay, so we're going to use Mongo, and that's fine. So we're going to, again, keep this pretty brief. We're going to just create our application. I'm going to go to my application properties. We'll come back to those. Well, we'll go ahead and do what we can here. So server port, I'm going to just point this to 8081 for a default, so I can go to that when I need to. And then Spring Cloud Stream bindings, we'll come back to that momentarily. That way it'll bark at me. And let's see, so with Kotlin, we have data classes, right? Which look a lot like your Java 14 records, which just got to Java, but or early access right now. But they've been in Kotlin for some time. So if you want to create a pizza class, and again, your primary constructor you have defined right here. So we can do this. We don't need to do this. So we have an ID field, which is of type long. Val just means it's a value. It's not updatable. It's not mutable. So we can make this a var, and then you would effectively have a property that would operate to allow you to get or set, right? But we don't want that. We want this to be a one-time assignment, so like a final in Java. So we have a val, also a description, memory serves, and that is a string.
Okay, now they did name that type after Josh, right?
Long, yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can see here. Well, it's private. I'm sorry, I can't tell you any more than that. But yeah, this is definitely
neither confirm nor deny.
This is definitely an homage to Josh. Yeah. So if we go up to the top here, yeah, let's yeah. So yeah, that's definitely. I don't know. I thought his name was in here somewhere. I'm just not finding it, but I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure it is. And this, I'm not sure who this is an homage to, but I'm sure it's in there somewhere. So, all right. So I'm going to create a configuration class, and again, numerous ways to do this. This is just the way I like to do it. So this will be our pizza corp and updater, because names are not long enough. We should make that longer, right? Pizza corporate inventory updater. Nice. All right, so we're going to create a bean here, not a B, and we'll create a function in Kotlin, and we're just going to update corp inv. Very nice. And with Kotlin, you don't have to create your whole method body here, right? So we can just do this. So what do we want to do here? We want to, let's see. So this is our updater. So we're going to make this a consumer once again. I'm trying to think how I need to go ahead and build this out, because the API just changed recently, or well, relatively recently, which is kind of nice. Oh, I need to double back on the other thing and come up with that as well. We're going to be receiving a Flux, or a publisher of type pizza here, right? Happy. Okay, so here's our lambda for our method for our consumer of a stream of pizzas. It just keeps getting better. So now within our lambda, we need to, or could at least, if you see over here, I guess let me just divert here. When you have a lambda in Kotlin, you can define the parameters by name, but if you have a single parameter, it just defaults to it. And it, in this case, is a flux of type pizza. So we know that we're a consumer of a flux of pizzas, a stream of pizzas. So we're going to just take it, and we're going to subscribe to it, which also takes a lambda, which has a parameter. And in this case, we're just going to print line. Come on, there we go, it. So let me clear out that. So if we, let's see, yeah, I was hoping it would show us exactly what we're doing here, but it's not. So that's disappointing. Okay, now again, we want to save this, right? So we want to create our repository. So this will be an interface. We'll call this our pizza repo. Let's see, so pizza repo. We're going to extend our reactive CRUD repository once again for objects of type pizza and IDs of type long. And then we need to inject that here. So we'll just inject that via, again, this is our primary constructor. This is where we're injecting things in Kotlin. So we inject our repo. And then here, so let's see, what do I want to do here? So we will do that. And then we will do a repo.save pizza. Oh, repo.save. Oh, let's see, it, of course, there we go. Let's see what we get there. Oh, actually I started to run that, but I haven't pointed this to our bindings here. So that's going to be a bit problematic. Let's go back and grab our update corp inv. And this once again is an input channel, 0 bindings. Binder is sync. And here we do our, not binder, that's our destination of sync, and our binder of rabbit. Whew. I think I should have gone with coffee. That's what I think. Okay, so let's go ahead and restart this. Let's go ahead and restart this.
Clearly, you should have gotten pizza before this, since it had been a while. It's all on your mind, and you can't think of anything but pizza.
Is it that obvious? I just, I can think about code when I'm thinking about food just so long, and then at some point it all starts looking like a giant veggie pizza. So, okay, so we looks like we're up and running here, so that's fine. Let's go back and see where we left off here. We have our 2 pizzas. So I'm just going to go to Codium. I'm going to make a quick change. This will be A3, and this will be lots meets jar edition. Okay, so there we go. Why is this barking?
Jar Jar would definitely have pineapple on his pizza.
Bob, you wound me, Bob. Okay, so let's see if that works. So yes, we've got that. Let's see. Yes, that saved that. And there we go. So everything is coming through. If we go back here, we see that we've got our pizza's pushing out, so that's fine. I didn't. We have a couple minutes, right? Oh, we're a little over.
You have as long as you want.
Well, the coworkers over here are getting restless, so.
Okay, well, I'll make this fast. Okay, so here's our notifier application. I'm just going to do one thing here: management, endpoints, web exposure include. And the reason I'm doing this is because I promised at least a quick glimpse at Actuator. Poor Actuator always gets the short shrift. But this, and let me point this out before Paul asks, because I know Paul's getting ready to. This is a bad practice. Please don't do this in production systems. I only do this for a demo. But what this Actuator is secure by default. You don't want to necessarily show your entire application underpinnings. You don't want to show your application properties to everybody, potentially your bad actors who could get in and take a look at your environment in which your application is running, your endpoints that are exposed, things like that. You don't want to expose more information than you need to. So it gives you things like your health endpoint, your info endpoint, and that's it by default. What I'm doing here is the proverbial kick down the door and open up everything for everyone. Do not do this in production. Please, 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 I beg you. However, again, if you're just noodling around in coding and want to see how things work, this is a great way to do that. So let's see, this was, server port 0. So I should have done this on something else. Well, such is life. So we're going to find our port here. Nutty is started here. So let's just go there. Local host, and instead of 8080, we'll paste that in. We'll go to Actuator, and you can see, that's a bit big. You can see that we have access to a lot of information that you wouldn't necessarily want to share with the world at large. So all of your beans in your application that are created either specifically by you or as part of Spring Boot's auto configuration, they're all here. You can explore them and get a lot of information there. You can also check out things like your info, which is very good information in this case, not much. You can add info in there. Your health, which is very basic information for your app, but you can add health indicators as well for various different parts of your application, your services. You can get a thread dump, heap dump. You can get metrics. Mappings is kind of nice. You can see what mappings are out there that are supported by your application. But again, not something you want to share with the greater world at large. You can check out your bindings. So if you have bindings for Spring Cloud Stream, in this case, we can see we have our notify customer in 0 channel that we're binding to. So that's kind of useful and helpful. Let's see what else. Some other things that I like to show. Env, this is very useful. Again, not something you want to share with the world at large. It tells us our system properties, our path, our class path. Here we go. We go on down. It tells us our Java vendor. Time zone. So you can gather a lot of information here that's super useful to you behind the scenes that you don't necessarily want to expose in general. Thus, I said, don't kick down the door unless you're just testing this out and playing with this in a non-production environment. But very useful information as well. So, gosh, so much other stuff that could be covered, but let's stop there.
Could have a round 2 sometime.
Yeah, we could do that. So with this, I actually haven't posted the repos out there yet, but I will. If you want to check out the repos, please just follow me on Twitter and I'll announce them there. Also, if you want to know more about the Spring Boot book and be advised of when the new updates and chapters are available, previews, things of that nature, at Spring Boot book on Twitter. Spring Noticias. Si eres hispanohablante, if you speak Spanish, if you have resources, if you want to access resources in Spanish, by all means, follow that Twitter handle, and then Spring Central for all things Spring in general. And with that, I guess let's stop for now there, and we'll maybe do another one another time. Well, but thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, that would be delightful, Mr. Dr. Corporate Captain Heckler. I tried to give you as many titles as possible.
Or something like that, yeah.
Yes. What's nice is this particular talk will be shortly, posted onto YouTube. It'll be on Twitch for a little bit, but then it'll go onto YouTube. So check out our Tanzu Tuesdays. We've got Josh Longs from last week, and all of our talks will go on that Tanzu Tuesdays of the YouTube channel. And we'll have you back for round 2, or round dos, as you would say, since you speak another language.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd say that. But...
Oh.
Round dos. Okay, yeah, well, we'll work on that.
Agree, disagree.
Oh my gosh. Are you a Psych fan too?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So good.
Yeah.
That's the pineapple references. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would actually value feedback because again, I normally hit things a little bit faster pace, but I kind of enjoy the meander, painting the happy trees in this case, and see if you do, if anybody has feedback, you love it, hate it, anything in between. Always looking to course correct and adjust and maybe provide some variety where it makes sense. So.
Well, you're a gentleman and a scholar. We can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day and your coffee schedule and now your pizza schedule to share your wonderful spring with us. As always, Tuesdays, 1 p.m. Pacific, we have our Tanzu Tuesdays. We're sharing everything great with Tanzu right now. We're doing a lot of spring stuff because we want people to know that VMware is in the developer game. Tanzu has spring as a part of its product portfolio, if you will. And so we're very excited. Next week, we're going to have Jakub Pileman coming all the way from Poland. I don't know what time it will be there, but hopefully he'll have a lot of coffee in his system so he can stay awake. And
10 p.m.
Yeah, 10 p.m. Is that what's going to be?
9-hour difference. If he's
yeah. Wow. Well, that's why he's young. He can stay up that late. And,
yeah. For those of you who don't know, Jakub has a junior developer. Those were air quotes. Junior developer persona. So we'll see if he actually shows up that way or not. But I'm hopeful.
It'll be great. It'll be
yes,
great. And all of our return watchers, thank you so much for your inputs on the chat. It was fun and also great questions. And we look forward to seeing you all next week. Stay safe, stay home, and let's build better software, everybody. We can do it together. Anything from you, Paul or Tiffany?
No, I think that's
it.
Other than
I don't know what you said to me.
Perfect. And Mark Heckler, I will let you get the last word in.
Well, thanks for everyone. Thanks to everyone for coming, and thanks for my teammates here for even making me look good. And that's no small feat. And they have no small feet. I don't know. My jokes are terrible, so I probably should just stop there. But thanks for coming. And again, feedback welcome. And see you next week on Tanzu Tuesday. Yay!
Yay!
I have whales on my feet.
Nice.
Bye.
So jealous. Bye.